Okay, imagine this. You found an unopened tube of 1980s custom racing products grease. CRP black molybdenum grease.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's like unearthing a time capsule, isn't it? Real artifact stuff from the golden age of RC cars. Think Tamiya Frog, Hornet, maybe the Blackfoot you've got.
The really iconic ones.
Exactly. And right away, you hit this question, this dilemma if you're a collector. Do you use it, for that perfect historical authenticity?
Hmm.
Or is it actually a risk? Could it damage those irreplaceable vintage parts? It's a classic collector's problem.
And that's really our mission today, isn't it? We want to give you a solid, evidence-based answer. We're going to take a deep dive into the science, really, of how grease ages and what that means for your classic RC.
Right. So let's unpack this. What exactly was in that tube back in the 80s? What made up that CRP grease?
Well, at its heart, it was a pretty complex mix for the time. You had a mineral-based oil, which was the bulk of it, maybe 95%.
Oh.
Then you had a thickener, usually a lithium soap type. And the key ingredient, solid molybdenum disulfide particles, MOIRs, for extreme pressure situations.
What strikes me there is, the mohair itself, that stuff's incredibly stable, right?
Yeah, very stable stuff.
But the other bits of the mineral oil,
Yeah.
and you mentioned the lithium soap thickener, those are organic, and they're just not as stable over, decades.
Exactly. That's the inherent weakness. They degrade over time.
So what's the biggest thing you'd expect to see? You've got grease that's, 40 years past its typical shelf life? Even sealed?
Yeah, even sealed. Time takes its toll. The number one failure mode is something called oil separation. You might hear it called bleeding.
Bleeding.
Yeah, the thickener structure, that lithium soap matrix, it breaks down. It can't hold the oil anymore, so the base oil just kind of separates out.
Okay.
And what you're left with is this hard, almost crumbly cake of thickener and malware's particles. It's not lubricating anymore. Plus, oxidation can turn that separated oil into sticky sludge or even tar.
That sounds unpleasant. But where does the real danger come in for the car's parts? You mentioned the moss particles getting stuck.
Right, and this is the critical part. When those moss particles are trapped in that hardened, caked-up gunk, they stop being helpful lubricants.
Okay.
They actually become an abrasive, like a lapping compound.
Yeah.
So instead of protecting your gears, they start grinding them down. Metal gears, and especially those softer vintage nylon gears, it can cause serious irreversible damage.
Wow, so the protective stuff turns destructive. That's kind of scary for a vintage model.
It really is. And there's another angle, too. Plastic compatibility.
Ah, right, the plastics.
Those old mineral oils, the base oil and that CRP grease, they weren't always kind to the plastics used back then. They could cause swelling, parts might bind up, or worse, make the plastic brittle, leading to cracks.
Which is definitely not something you want in a 40-year-old Tamiya part.
Precisely. Modern greases are specifically formulated to avoid these issues. They're tested to be plastic safe.
Okay, so let's say you have that tube, you look at it, maybe you see some oiliness on the outside or it feels kind of stiff. What's the best way forward? How do you protect that vintage drivetrain and still get good performance?
Well, connecting this to where things are now, lubricant tech has come a long way since the 80s. Modern synthetic greases, silicone-based ones, they're much more stable thermally, they resist oxidation better, and crucially, like we said, they're explicitly plastic safe.
So using modern stuff is the way to go. For a vintage Tamiya, what would you actually recommend?
We generally suggest two solid approaches. First, what you might call the best of both worlds method.
Okay.
For the metal gears in the transmission, use a good modern Moly grease. Something like Tamiya's own molybdenum grease, that's item 87022, or maybe Associated Electric's FT black grease, item 6588. Both are excellent.
Right, for the metal parts.
Then for the plastic gears, especially those idler gears which can be fragile, use a very, very light film of something like Tamiya Ceramic Grease HG. That's item 87099. It's super slick and totally plastic safe.
Okay, so two different greases for different parts. What if you want something simpler?
Yeah, if you prefer a single grease solution, the pragmatic choice is probably the Tamiya Molybdenum Grease, the 87022. It's actually formulated to be safe on both metal and the common plastics found in those kits.
Good to know. And regardless of which grease or greases you choose.
A few key rules always apply. 1, cleanliness. Get everything completely degreased first. Old grease, dirt, everything out.
Super important.
2, less is more. Don't just pack the gearbox full. A light coating on the gear teeth is usually all you need.
Right.
And 3, Never, ever mix different types of grease. They often use different thickeners, and mixing them can cause them both to break down faster.
Okay, so clean, use sparingly, and don't mix.
Got it.
So boiling it all down, that 40-year-old tube of CRP grease.
It's a fantastic piece of history, a collector's item.
But not a lubricant anymore.
Exactly, it's an artifact. Using it would be a significant unnecessary risk to those vintage parts you treasure. It's just not worth it compared to modern options.
It really feels like sometimes our nostalgia needs a little reality check from science, doesn't it?
It does, and honestly, the best way to honor and preserve that vintage Tamiya is to use the best modern science available. Fresh, purpose-built, plastic-safe lubricants, that's what guarantees its performance and longevity.
So here's a final thought to leave you with.
Yeah.
Sometimes the truest way to cherish and preserve the past is actually by wisely choosing the best tools and knowledge that the present offers.